Well, hello everybody. Here we are again, another edition of Orchid and Kato Reviews. This is just a quick look back at the last week of wrestling. Oh my God. I've watched so much wrestling in the last week. Saturday, I spent all day watching, while you were at a wedding, I spent all day watching New Japan, which I love, but still, it's like 7 hours of New Japan. I mean, 7 hours of anything is too much. And then, so then Monday, you and I sat down.
Well,
and
Sunday.
What did we watch Sunday?
No, we didn't. Never
We
mind.
didn't know Sunday.
No, sorry, I was getting confused.
Okay, so Monday we watched part one of the UK tournament.
Yeah.
And then we watched Raw. And then yesterday we watched
Part two
of the UK tournament. And we're going to talk a bit about that. And then we watched Smackdown. And then here we are, Wednesday afternoon. This will be airing Wednesday in the evening here. A lot of wrestling. So I'm a little burned out. I'm glad for a little bit of a break from wrestling. So we're going to jump into it. A lot to talk about. Sort of. I don't know if it's quite as eventful as last week.
I don't think so.
But, I mean, still, some things happen.
Yeah.
Anything pop into your mind?
Just the thing I told you about last week.
Okay, we'll get into that. I know you told me so, but let's get into it. All right. First, let's start with something I thought was sort of maybe the only interesting thing that happened on Raw. I thought Raw was a little boring this week.
Yeah.
Maybe not their best effort as far as the show,
Yeah.
but maybe the only interesting thing that we saw was maybe a heel turn.
Finally, they did something with the Bailey and Sasha stuff.
Yeah,
Finally.
yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I don't think Bailey's a heel. If the two, out of the two, Sasha should be the heel, in my opinion. Like, I think Sasha can pull off a heel. I don't think Bailey can pull off a heel. And that's not saying anything wrong with Bailey, but I just don't think that, like, her character in general can do a heel turn. Like, she's the ultimate babyface.
I think that it's weird too. I mean, were they trying to turn her heel? I can't tell because I mean, if you're going to turn somebody heel, would you do it in their hometown? Because people are going to cheer. I mean, it was a loud reaction as a babyface reaction for Bailey whenever she's just doing something maybe in another town that would get her booed. So I think that was a mistake if that's what they're trying to do. Maybe they were trying to push the boundaries because they had her curse in her little segment there, which is way off the page for Bailey. How did you feel about that part of it?
Again, I don't know. It just didn't seem to fit the character to me. And, like, I don't see it as, is that a heel turn? Like, in general, I mean, if you look at Roman Reigns is a good guy, and he curses. He'll say the B word, and
right.
I mean, if he's a babyface, why is he cursing?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think like Roman Reigns' character as opposed to Bailey's character is more. Bailey's sort of been presented as a kid's character, more or less. So to have her curse on television, I don't know if she took that on herself or if that's something that was planned for her, but. It felt really out of character. I've said for a long time, like, I think, like, whenever I first started really getting into Bailey 2 or 3 years ago when she was still at NXT, I said that, she could be, for young girls, the John Cena for young girls, like somebody that young girls could always look up to and admire. So, like, I don't like what they did with her. I don't like her. Even if it's not a heel turn, I just don't like what they did there. I like her as an underdog who's always sort of battling from underneath, who's the one that's getting beat up as opposed to, maliciously attacking somebody. So I mean, I'm not saying it won't work, but I think for long term, for somebody that they could use in a positive manner for the next 15 years, I don't like it. It just doesn't work for me. I think that Bailey just fits better as a pure white meat babyface.
Right.
So, okay. Second one.
I told you so?
No, not yet. We're going to get there. The second one we're going to talk about today, we spent 2 days on it, a lot of hours, maybe 6 hours of our lives this week on the UK tournament. Do you have any thoughts, particularly as far as the UK tournament goes?
I like the UK tournament, but if you're going to watch it, you're going to watch it for not a storyline. You're going to watch it because it gives you good wrestling. There was no storyline, really, that, like... I mean, there was a storyline, but there wasn't a storyline. but I thought they did an amazing job. Tyler Bates, both of his matches, amazing. Saw stuff that I had never seen before, and that was really cool. I thought every single match was amazing, but there was just no storyline.
What they presented the last 2 days, I mean, I know that they introduced a UK NXT brand. It's going to be a weekly show, I guess, based on what you saw in the last 2 days, because you didn't see the tournament last year.
Right.
Based on what you saw the past 2 days, does it make you want to tune in to see this new UK brand, or is it going to be like a 205 Live, which you and I have never, we've never
Right.
sat down and watched 205 Live.
Right.
I mean, do you think that it's going to be another 205 Live, or is this going to be something that really, you can't miss television?
I think there's probably going to be kind of like a 205 Live, where they'll do cool spots, and we'll probably see those cool spots on YouTube, but we probably won't sit down and make time to watch it every week. It's just getting to the point where it's too much wrestling. We have 3 hours of Raw every week, and then 2 hours of SmackDown, and you've got pay-per-views on top of that, and if you watch a pay-per-view, sometimes it's 7 hours long if you start watching the pre-show all the way through until midnight, finishing it off. That's 7 hours that we spend just on a Sunday watching wrestling.
I think that, we'll get back to the UK tournament, but since you brought it up, I think that, I catch myself complaining. Raw was a good example. I thought it was not a great show. Mm-hmm. It was sort of flat, sort of boring. I thought, oh my God, it was just terrible night for wrestling. But in truth, in a lot of ways, I hear so many people complaining about wrestling right now, but really there's never been a better time in wrestling, because even first thing people point to is the Attitude Era and how mm-hmm. great that particular part of wrestling was. But now, you've never had more choices mm-hmm. to watch. If you don't like Raw, watch SmackDown. If you don't like SmackDown, watch NXT. If you don't like NXT, you can watch. There's so much great British wrestling out there with the Evolve and Progress Wrestling. There's still certainly a market for Impact, which is now, mm-hmm. I think, Global or whatever, Global Wrestling Network or whatever they call it now. There's New Japan, which, I love. I mm-hmm. talked about it a little bit here earlier. So, there's really never been a better time for variety. Even at its peak in the Attitude Era, we had WWE, we had WCW, and we had ECW. Now, there was a little bit of independence going on, but, that was your option. Now you have so many options. And mm-hmm. the truth is, I don't know if there's ever been a better time for independent wrestling on top of it, too. So it's a really great time for wrestling. I hope that people can kind of keep that in mind whenever they want to complain about a particular segment mm-hmm. Or a particular episode of any show, because there's just so much wrestling. Even right. I'm sure 205 Live has its very niche market as well, because otherwise it still wouldn't be on television. Right. So there's just such a variety of wrestling. This is sort of, if you really think about it, it's probably the best time ever for wrestling. Mm-hmm. The quality of matches that we're seeing on a week in and week out basis are, every week you are seeing somewhere, you're seeing an absolutely great match. So, I don't know, it's a good time for wrestling. But getting back to the UK tournament, I think for me, I love British Strong Style. I think mm-hmm. it's my absolute favorite kind of wrestling. I'll take that over almost anything. I just absolutely love it. I think that Tyler Bate is amazing. I think Pete Dunne is absolutely just really great. Gibson, the guy who won the tournament this time, mm-hmm. I enjoyed him. I really thought he was flat, and then his style really sort of grew mm-hmm. on me throughout, and the crowd there was fantastic. Yeah. Take off your shoes, whatever the chant was, it was fun. That crowd was so fun. If you can get that crowd on television every week, I think it's going to be fun. For me personally, I think it's a show that I'm going to want to see every single week. I'm really looking forward to it. Is it every single week? Because my impression was it was going to be a once-a-month type of thing. I think what they'll do is like they do with NXT, where NXT tapes a whole month of episodes, an hour-long episodes. Mm-hmm. Speaking of great wrestling, I forgot there's one. Ring of Honor has great wrestling, too, yeah. So don't forget about that. And my buddy Shane Taylor is down there. So, it's great stuff. So, but anyway, yeah, I think it'll be like Ring of Honor does the same thing. They'll tape 4 weeks of television all in one night or 2 nights, and then you'll get that over an hour at a time. So that's what I think is going to happen. I don't know, but for me, I'm going to tune in. I'm going to want to see it because now the other end of that is I think that, and maybe time will tell this a different story, but I guess every wrestling has this, but I think once you get sort of past the Tyler Bate and the Pete Dunne and this Josh Gibson, I think that maybe the talent disparity is a pretty hard drop off from the very best to the next layer of wrestlers there. I'm not sure. Maybe there's still guys to be found. I think there's other great British wrestlers out there, you know, the villain Marty Scurll, who I love. You know, there's guys in New Japan that are really great as well. So if they get some of these other guys that really sort of define British strong style, I think that like it's going to be a great show and in a lot of ways maybe the best show on television if given time. The other thing I really loved about the UK tournament is the fact that guys and girls that wrestled on the show were given adequate time to tell their stories. Yeah. I mean, everything we watch on Raw and SmackDown, not everything, but for the most part, a lot of it's really rushed. Like, you have 4 minutes to tell your story. You've got 6 minutes to tell your story. Where, as a guy that's been in the ring and done it for 20 years, like, it's really hard to tell a compelling, good, interesting story in 4, 5, 6 minutes. So, you know, every match was getting 15, 20 minutes, which was brilliant and wonderful for me to watch. So I'm hopeful that, you know, once they start their show, it'll be the same type of a thing. Yeah. So, but moving on to the next thing, speaking of shows.
I told you so.
No, not yet. Not yet. I just saw today, and I think the news was released yesterday, but I just saw today that SmackDown Live is going to be moving yet again. This is the show, as far as wrestling, I felt like has moved a lot. Is going to be moving, as announced weeks ago, to Fox, but it's going to be on Friday nights. You have any thoughts on, does it matter to you what night of the week wrestling is on?
Kind of. I mean, it kind of gives us something to do on a Monday and Tuesday night. I mean, not that we're by any means partiers on Friday nights, but I mean, we kind of get together as a family on weekends, and we spend our weekends together. So it kind of, I think it's going to be an interesting shift. I think we'll probably push off watching wrestling until the weekend is over, which kind of stinks for us.
Right, or even Sunday mornings. Like Sunday mornings is sort of a downtime before we go do something. So Sunday mornings might be the time for and I think for independents too, it's going to hurt a little bit because I know, you know, a lot of companies run on Saturday, but there's a fair amount that run Friday night, and you're not going to want to run your independent show head to head on Friday nights. I think that the SmackDown that we're getting now, that sort of feels like a blend between independent wrestling and WWE, I think that's going to go out the window when they move to Fox. I think that we're going to get a more straight WWE product, which I don't know is a good thing in today's market or not. There are times in the past year to 2 years I felt like SmackDown was like just the show. It was so good. And then there's other times where it's just almost unwatchable. So it's sort of it's a weird show. It's interesting that they move that now they're calling that their flagship show when it's always been Raw. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it would be weird. Happened. It would be different. All
right, moving on. Next
one. I told you so?
No. Our fourth topic of the day, because we do 5 topics. Everybody that doesn't know, this is the second show. We do 5 topics. Our next one is maybe the weirdest one we're going to cover in a while. Nakamura couldn't wrestle last night because he got bit by a dog. What do you think?
I don't understand it. I mean, he did. From what I've read, is that he didn't do anything to provoke the dog to bite him. So I'm curious. Like, the dog was smelling, looking for, I'm assuming, bombs or drugs.
Drugs, probably. He's a drug sniffing dog, I would imagine.
So, like, did Nakamura have something on him? Like,
I don't. It's a weird story. I hope that there's nothing to it. Yeah. It's sort of worrisome though. Like if either way, if it's a bomb sniffing dog or a drug sniffing dog, that it would bite somebody. It's sort of worrisome. So I hope there isn't more to this story. And The only reason I sort of brought it up, first off, I thought it was sort of a slow week because Raw was sort of boring. But I think it's a good opportunity to talk about Nakamura. We haven't really talked about him. When he was in New Japan, he was my absolute favorite. And I'm really disappointed at what they've done with him. They did a nice job with him at NXT. When he came up, they said, well, he's not getting over in the same way, and it's not really working in the same way. But, last year he was doing jobs to Jinder Mahal.
Yeah.
Like you bring this guy who you built up as, through video packages and whatnot as this giant superstar, and there's a myth and a legend with Nakamura, and then you bring him in, you have him do jobs to Jinder Mahal. I just think, they didn't undercut their own legs from under this guy who could be a top guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if now he's lost 4 or 5 times in a row to AJ Styles. I don't know if you can ever get this guy back to where you need him to be.
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed with what they've done with Nakamura.
I can't imagine, when he came in to WWE, to Raw, or to SmackDown, he was getting a pop. A huge pop. I don't know why they didn't push him. And I loved him as a heel. I guess he's still a heel, but I love him as a heel. They should have put the belt on him and done AJ Styles and him for the rest of the summer. Yeah. I think that would have been an amazing angle for the entire summer.
Well, if you do that all summer, though, you're not getting your Rusev shirt.
Yeah, I know.
Which is ordered now. It's on its way. Maybe by next week this time, you'll have your beautiful new Rusev Day T-shirt. So,
very exciting.
Okay, so the moment you've been waiting for. Our last subject of the day.
Team Hell No.
Team Hell No, which you called last week, which in retrospect, when you look at it, wasn't really that big of a prediction.
I mean, nobody else predicted it. I have not seen one thing about Team Hell No the last 2 weeks. And I was the first one to say anything about it last week when we were watching SmackDown.
You were. I agree.
Daniel Bryan came out. I was like, oh, yes. This is going to happen.
Yeah. When he got attacked. Yeah. You definitely did. I'm anxious to see how it plays out. I think that Team Hell No experience really elevated Daniel Bryan and got him to where he needed to be for WrestleMania 30. I thought it was really fun. The hugging, the whole deal is really great. I would love to see them win the tag titles just so we could rehear that I'm the tag team champion. It was such a fun little deal that they did there, and I really hope they could recapture that magic. What do you think, though? You think they're going to win the tag titles? Or because Kane's very in and out right now.
Right. I don't know if they'll win. I think it would be amazing if they do win, but I can't imagine that they will, just because I think that they're really pushing the Bludgeon Brothers as the top guys right now. And that's fine, but I think, and I mean, it kind of hurts the tag team division if you have 2 people that haven't really been a tag team defeat them. And then, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's happened so many times in wrestling, though. I mean,
I know, but, if you're trying to push a good tag division, you've got to have teams that are teams, not just makeshift teams. I know Team Hell No is a team, but they haven't been a team for a while.
What do you think of the Bludgeon Brothers? Do you enjoy them on television, or they don't do much for you?
I like the idea of them. I don't necessarily enjoy their wrestling style, and I don't like their promos either. I like the idea of them. I like the idea of them being big, strong guys and taking out the entire tag division, but I just don't think that they've done a good job thus far of wrestling. I mean, that rematch that we had last Tuesday of them and the club. That match was a disaster.
Yeah, right. It was really bad. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me because I'm really biased. We had Luke Harper on our shows in Altoona before, and I've been on shows with him. And he's such a good dude. I'm so happy for his success. So I'm certainly biased. When I watch Shane Taylor on Ring of Honor, I'm biased. When you know somebody, you're a little biased. I'm really rooting for them. For him specifically, Luke Harper. I don't know if you remember, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, he had a nice singles run, and he was really killing it, and people were really getting with him. And
he was beating up Randy Orton and everything.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden there's another one. They just cut the legs out from him and like, you got over, but maybe not the way we wanted you. Right. I don't know what happens. Yeah. Like, I'd love to sit down with somebody in creative there and say, like, what happened here with Luke Harper? What happened with Zack Ryder?
Yeah.
What the hell were you guys doing with Rusev for all those months?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's such a... I don't understand. And maybe they feel like because they're such a huge ship, like, if it isn't in their plans, they can't turn that ship very suddenly. So that's the only rational thing that I can put with it, because it's, like, as a fan, sometimes it's so frustrating. That's what's one nice thing about independent wrestling. Like, if you have smart bookers and you can change your plans on a dime. Like, this guy is getting over to no tomorrow. Like, we have to get him elevated now. And unless, like, the marketing's in place and the appearances are in place, it's really a lot harder for them to elevate somebody suddenly.
Right.
But it's not as though they haven't done it. Like, they did it with Jinder Mahal just last year. Like, he was a job guy.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's the world champion. So it can be done. Why they choose to do it with some guys and not with other guys, I don't know. But so, all right, well, I mean, we got through it. It wasn't I don't think it was long this time. I think we did almost 25 minutes last time.
Yeah.
We're going to try to keep it closer to 15 minutes, but I haven't checked the time. It may be 15, 20 minutes till we got through it. So,
and now I get a Team Hell No t-shirt too.
Holy cow, we gotta get a new shirt every time. That's a good question. I wonder if they'll release a new Team Hell No t-shirt.
They should.
Yeah, I bet it would sell.
I bet it would sell.
You would buy one.
I would buy one.
All right, so hey, this was great. We had a good show again this time. I hope everybody had a good time. Please, I don't often ask you to share these, but I'm really having a good time with these. I hope you guys are enjoying them too. If you like it, give it a share. That's all we ask. Thank you. Guys, girls, please stop having bad matches. You're ruining my life.